The billionaire's fiancé forced the black maid onto her knees in front of 220 guests and ordered her to beg for the right to keep her job. Aaliyah Brooks did not cry. She knelt on the cold marble floor, one hand pressed against her torn uniform, and looked up at Sabrina Worthington with a dignity that only made the wealthy woman angrier. "Tell everyone you poisoned that child against me," Sabrina demanded. "Beg me to forgive you." Politicians, investors, and reporters stood beneath crystal chandeliers, pretending they had not heard. Before Aaliyah could speak, a tiny red light blinked behind the velvet curtains. 8-year-old Grace Vale was hiding there with her late mother's old video camera pressed against her chest. Sabrina had no idea the little girl had recorded every word. And when Grace's father finally returned to the ballroom, that recording would expose far more than a cruel public humiliation. "Tell us where you are watching from today, and stay until the end," because the woman Sabrina tried to silence was the only person standing between a child and a $500 million plan. Aaliyah Brooks was a 32-year-old black woman with deep brown skin, intelligent eyes, and a calm presence that made frightened children feel safe. For almost 2 years, she had worked at Vale House overlooking the Hudson River. She arrived before sunrise, organized the household schedules, and left each evening in time to help her 10-year-old son, Micah, with homework. Most visitors saw only a maid in a black uniform with a white collar. They did not know she had spent 8 years as a family law paralegal, reviewing custody files and guardianship petitions. She noticed changed dates, inconsistent signatures, and sentences designed to hide dangerous intentions. Then her law firm collapsed after a senior partner stole client funds. Her salary and insurance disappeared just as Micah needed hearing surgery. Vale House offered stable pay and medical coverage, so Aaliyah accepted what she thought would be temporary work. Temporary became 2 years. Dominic Vale knew Aaliyah was raising a son alone. He knew she was reliable, educated, and unusually good at calming his daughter during difficult days. He did not know the rest. At 40, Dominic controlled Vale Media, but no amount of money had prepared him for losing his wife, Rebecca, to cancer 3 years earlier. Grace had stopped speaking for nearly 2 months after the funeral. Therapists came and went while Dominic buried himself in work. Aaliyah never forced Grace to talk. She sat beside her, folded linens, and allowed the child to draw. One afternoon, Grace whispered, "Do you think Mommy can still hear me?" "Love does not stop listening just because a person is gone," Aaliyah answered. Grace began speaking again after that. Dominic never forgot it. Neither did Sabrina Worthington. Sabrina had entered Dominic's life 18 months earlier. Elegant, charming, and publicly devoted to children's charities, she promised that Grace would always come first. In front of Dominic, she treated Aaliyah warmly. When he left, the kindness disappeared. She hated Grace's trust in Aaliyah and the careful way the maid watched her whenever a story did not fit the facts. 6 weeks before the engagement gala, Aaliyah found Grace crying inside Rebecca's old dressing room. Pieces of handwritten letters covered the carpet. Sabrina stood near the fireplace holding the final page. "What happened?" Aaliyah asked. Grace pointed toward the paper. "Those were Mommy's letters to me. Rebecca had written one letter for every future birthday Grace might celebrate without her." Sabrina dropped the page into the fire. "The child is becoming obsessed with the past," she said. "I am helping her move forward." Aaliyah crossed the room and pulled the remaining letters away from the flames. "You had no right." Sabrina's eyes narrowed. "You clean this room. You do not tell me what rights I have." Grace wrapped both arms around Aaliyah's waist. Sabrina looked at the child with a coldness that made Aaliyah's stomach tighten. "After the wedding, this unhealthy attachment will end." That evening, Aaliyah tried to tell Dominic, but he had flown to Chicago for an emergency board meeting. The following morning, Sabrina removed Rebecca's letters from the house safe. Aaliyah began paying closer attention. 1 week later, she entered Dominic's study and saw an open folder marked temporary guardianship and voting proxy. Aaliyah knew she should not read private documents. Then she saw Grace's name. The papers would give Sabrina temporary guardianship if Dominic became unavailable. A second document granted the guardian control over shares held in Grace's trust. Those shares were worth more than $500 million. The signature looked like Dominic's, but the date format was wrong, and the notary stamp belonged to a county 300 miles away. Aaliyah photographed the pages with her phone. Before she could leave, Sabrina entered. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Sabrina closed the door. "You have a dangerous habit of forgetting what you are." Aaliyah placed the coffee on the desk. "I know exactly what I am. A maid. A mother. And someone who recognizes a questionable guardianship document." Sabrina's expression changed. "You will delete those photographs." "No. You will lose your job." "Then I will lose it after Dominic sees them." Sabrina smiled slowly. "He will never believe that the woman he plans to marry forged his signature because a housekeeper says so. He will believe evidence. Evidence can be made to disappear." That was the moment Aaliyah understood the gala was not simply a celebration. It was a deadline. The engagement gala filled Vale House with 220 guests, white orchids, a live orchestra, and a giant screen displaying photographs of Dominic and Sabrina. During the final toast, Grace was expected to receive the Vale family locket and publicly welcome Sabrina into the family. Sabrina had rehearsed the moment for weeks. Grace had never agreed. She had only remained silent. That afternoon, Grace found her mother's old camera inside a cabinet. "I want to make Daddy a movie," she told Aaliyah. Aaliyah helped her charge it. Grace recorded the flowers, orchestra, and kitchen staff before wandering behind the ballroom stage. From there, she heard Sabrina speaking to her personal attorney. "Once the wedding is complete, the school placement begins immediately," Sabrina said. "And if Dominic refuses?" the attorney asked. "He won't know until Grace is already in Switzerland. The guardianship papers will be filed during his Asia trip." "What about the maid?" "She will be gone tonight." Grace stopped breathing. She raised the camera and pressed record. Sabrina continued. "The child's trust gives the guardian voting authority. Once I control those shares, the foundation merger passes, and Dominic can complain after the money has moved." Grace did not understand every word. She understood Switzerland, that Sabrina planned to send her away, and that Aaliyah was in danger. Shortly before the final toast, Grace ran to Aaliyah. "She burned Mommy's letters," Grace whispered. "And she wants to send me away." Aaliyah knelt. "Where did you hear that?" Before Grace could answer, Sabrina appeared. "There you are." She saw the camera and snatched it from Grace's hand. "What have you been recording?" "Give it back," Grace said. Sabrina opened the side panel, but before she could remove the memory card, a photographer called her toward the stage. She handed the camera to her assistant. "Put this in my room." The assistant placed it on a table behind the curtain instead. The red light remained on. Dominic received an urgent call and stepped into the garden corridor. Sabrina took Grace onto the stage as the orchestra stopped. Smiling into the cameras, she held out the family locket. "Grace has something she would like to say." Grace looked toward Aaliyah at the side of the ballroom. Then she looked at Sabrina. "I don't want you to be my mother." The room went silent. Sabrina's smile froze. Grace stepped away. "You burned Mommy's letters. You said you're sending me away after the wedding." Gasps moved through the guests. Sabrina caught Grace by the wrist. "Who told you that?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. Aaliyah moved forward. "Release her." Sabrina turned toward her. There was no warmth left in her face. "You did this." "No. You have been filling her head with lies for months." Grace pulled free and ran behind the curtain. Sabrina pointed at Aaliyah. "Come here." Aaliyah remained still. "If you want to keep your position in this house, come here now." Aaliyah walked toward the stage because Grace was frightened and cameras were already pointed at them. Sabrina lowered her voice. "You will tell everyone you manipulated the child because you wanted my job and my fiancé's attention." "I will not lie." "You will kneel and apologize." "No." Sabrina signaled to 2 security guards. "Make her." The men hesitated. "She threatened Miss Vale," Sabrina said. "Remove her if she refuses." One guard placed a hand on Aaliyah's shoulder. The other pushed behind her knee. Aaliyah dropped onto the marble. A shocked murmur passed through the ballroom. Sabrina stood above her. "Beg me to forgive you." Aaliyah looked up. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I will not beg you for the right to protect a child." Sabrina slapped the legal photographs from Aaliyah's hand. The pages scattered across the floor. "You are nothing but hired help." "No," Aaliyah replied. "I am the person who noticed what you were doing." Behind the curtain, the camera recorded every word. Then Grace found it. She picked it up and ran through the private corridor toward the garden. Dominic was returning from his call when his daughter collided with him. "Daddy," she made Aaliyah get on the floor. Dominic saw the terror in Grace's face. "What happened?" "She's sending me away." Grace held up the camera. "I recorded it." Beneath the garden archway, Dominic watched Sabrina discuss Switzerland, the forged guardianship papers, and Grace's trust. Then the recording showed Aaliyah on her knees while Sabrina ordered her to beg. Dominic handed the camera to his security chief. "Put this on the ballroom screen. Do not edit a second." He entered through the dark side doorway. Sabrina did not see him. "Say you are sorry," she demanded again. Aaliyah's eyes did not leave hers. "I am sorry Grace ever believed you were safe." "That is enough," Dominic said. Every head turned. He stepped out of the shadows with Grace beside him. Sabrina's face lost all color. "Dominic, thank God. This woman has." "I watched the recording." The guards immediately released Aaliyah. Dominic crossed the floor, removed his jacket, and placed it around her shoulders. Then he offered his hand. "You should never have been forced to kneel in this house." Aaliyah stood. Dominic turned toward the guests. "I want everyone to see what my daughter recorded." The giant screen came to life. Sabrina's private conversation filled the ballroom, followed by the recording of Aaliyah being pushed onto her knees. No one looked away now. When the video ended, Sabrina shook her head. She misunderstood. "The attorney and I were discussing contingency planning." "You discussed controlling Grace's trust," Dominic said. "For the family." "You discussed removing my daughter from the country without my knowledge. Because that maid has made her unstable." Grace stepped forward. "Aaliyah did not tell me to hate you." Sabrina looked at her. "You are confused." "No," Grace said. "I was confused when you smiled at Daddy and scared me when he left." Dominic's expression became colder. He picked up one of the scattered legal pages. "This is not my signature." Sabrina's attorney moved toward the exit. Security blocked him. Dominic looked at Sabrina. "The engagement is over. You are destroying our future because of a servant and a frightened child. I am protecting my daughter from the woman I almost brought into her life." Sabrina's voice rose. "You need me. Your board needs the merger. The board will survive. And what about your reputation?" Dominic looked around the ballroom. "My reputation deserves whatever happens after tonight. I failed to see what was happening in my own home." He faced Aaliyah. "But I will not fail Grace again." Police were contacted, and Sabrina and her attorney were separated while the documents were secured. Dominic drove Aaliyah home. Micah was waiting with her sister, and his face tightened when he saw the marks on his mother's knees. "Did someone hurt you?" Aaliyah pulled him into her arms. "Someone tried to make me feel small." "Did it work?" She looked at Dominic standing quietly by the door. "No." The investigation uncovered false therapy reports describing Grace as emotionally disturbed, designed to justify sending her to boarding school. The foundation merger would then move millions into companies controlled by Sabrina's family, using Grace's trust shares as the deciding votes. Aaliyah's knowledge of family law helped Dominic's attorneys identify the forged notary records and altered evaluation dates. After the broken engagement, Sabrina told the press that Aaliyah had manipulated a grieving child to seduce a billionaire. Reporters appeared outside Micah's school, and Aaliyah considered disappearing. "I cannot let my son become part of this," she told Dominic inside the study where she had found the papers. "You can walk away," he said. "I will still protect you." "And Grace? She has me." "She always had you," Aaliyah replied. "She needed you to be present." The truth hurt, But Dominic accepted it. Grace entered holding several of her mother's recovered letters. "You stayed when I was scared," she told Aaliyah. Aaliyah took the child's hand. "Then I will stay long enough to tell the truth properly." 3 weeks later, at Vale Media's annual Children's Foundation dinner, Sabrina appeared with lawyers and reporters and called the recordings incomplete. Then Dominic invited Aaliyah forward. Aaliyah wore a simple burgundy dress. Her knees had healed, but she remembered the cold marble beneath them. Sabrina smiled when she saw her. "The maid has become a legal expert now?" Aaliyah took the microphone. "No. She was one before you noticed her." The screen displayed the guardianship files, Sabrina's messages, payments to the false therapist, and the forged notary records. Then Grace's complete video played before the cameras. Sabrina turned toward Dominic. "You would choose her over me." "This was never a choice between two women," he replied. "It was a choice between protecting my daughter and protecting your lies." Police officers approached the stage. Sabrina looked at Aaliyah with hatred. "You still cleaned my floors." Aaliyah held her gaze. "And while I cleaned them, I saw the dirt you believed money could hide." The first applause came from the household staff. Then parents connected to the foundation stood. Within moments, the room filled with applause. Sabrina was arrested for conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and attempted unlawful transfer of guardianship authority. Her foundation's board removed her before midnight. Dominic cancelled the merger and created an independent legal center for families facing fraudulent custody actions. Aaliyah refused his first job offer because it sounded like gratitude. He returned with an outside board contract, real authority, and funding for her postponed qualifications. Aaliyah read every page. Then she changed 4 clauses. Dominic agreed to all of them. Their relationship did not become romantic immediately. Aaliyah needed to trust that Dominic respected her, and Dominic needed to become a father who was present even when work demanded his attention. Months passed through school meetings, legal center openings, and dinners where Micah and Grace argued over which superhero would make the best lawyer. Grace's nightmares faded, Micah recovered from surgery, and Aaliyah became director of the Rebecca Vale Family Advocacy Center. 1 year after the gala, she stood inside the center's main hall beside a glass display. Inside was Grace's old video camera. A plaque beneath it read, "Truth does not need to be powerful. It only needs to be preserved." Dominic joined Aaliyah beside the display. "Do you still think about that night?" he asked. "Sometimes. I should have seen what Sabrina was doing earlier." "Yes." He smiled faintly at her honesty. Aaliyah continued. "But regret only matters when it changes what you do next." Dominic looked through the glass doors where Grace and Micah were completing homework together. "I do not want to rescue you." "Good. I would like to earn a place beside you." Aaliyah studied him. Slowly. "I expected that." Grace appeared in the doorway. "He has been practicing that answer." Dominic looked offended. "I have not. You said it in the car 3 times. Aaliyah laughed. A year earlier, she had been forced onto her knees because Sabrina believed a black maid could be publicly broken without consequence. Now Aaliyah stood at the head of an organization built to protect people whose voices powerful families tried to erase. The marble floor had not made her small. The uniform had not defined her. And begging would never have created dignity, because dignity had been hers before anyone entered that ballroom. Sometimes courage is not standing without fear. Sometimes it is refusing to lie while everyone is watching. And sometimes the smallest person in the room is the one who preserves the truth that changes every life around her. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that truth can be hidden behind curtains, but it cannot remain silent forever.